my name is Souls Convoy, and I'm back again with another Legends class review. Today we are taking a look at Newage H63V Gorgo, which is their version of G2 Slag. I knew I said I would do the Shattered Glass one that I had on loan for today's review, but I decided I just got this one in because of that toy, and I really wanted to talk about this guy. So I'll get back to the Shattered Glass version of this mold at a later date. We have the box, the G2 homage box art. Pretty nice, like the die-cast metal call out, usual pictures of the figure, artwork, pictures of the figure, and picture of the figure. Get out of the way. All right, so let me get in close on the figure's head sculpt. So unfortunately, since this figure's head sculpt is in all black, it's going to be a bit hard to see. But you can kind of pick it out there. I think it looks pretty good. For the most part, I think it looks pretty good. The red paint for the eyes is done well. It's an unfortunate part of, being accurate to the original toy, I guess. I don't think I would have minded if they took liberties, but I think, considering how toy accurate these EX and G2 versions usually are, I think some people would have been disappointed. You have a silver paint on the chest, which looks pretty good. This red is unfortunately unpainted. One of my only complaints. The red horns are unpainted. You have these tampographs here, tampographs here, tampographs on the thighs, tampographs on the knees, and then gold paint with tampographs on the feet. Taking it a bit back. The legs, I think some people are going to complain about the size and the general kibble. I don't think they're that bad considering what they do, and they are generally well proportioned. He doesn't have the same issue as Snarl, where they're just like obscenely large. More tampographs, chrome. The only chrome on this figure are these two parts, which go on the sides, the Dino mode and then the frill. And these horns are also bare red plastic, by the way. So not a lot of fingerprint magnet stuff going on with this guy. For the most part, I think he looks pretty good. The paint is pretty good. The detail is pretty good. Let me remove this sword. Let's get started with articulation. So the head is on a ball joint, which means you can get a nice side to side. It can obviously go the full 360, but it's going to clash with the head back here once you go past 90 to his direction. You can look down, not too much. You can look up significantly, and you're not really hindered by the backpack in my experience. You've got butterfly joints here. They're in hinges. I think they're a bit looser than they need to be. They're not loose, but the other joints around them are pretty tight, so that kind of becomes an issue because they're not as tight as the joints around them. You have universal shoulder. Obviously clearing the horns, and the backpack is, in the way, but other than that, goes out to 90. So this is one of those things, the shoulder swivel is tight, but the bicep swivel is even tighter, but you do have a universal bicep swivel. You have a double jointed elbow, you have a hinge joint here, and then there's a screw here on the lower joint. That screw is tighter than this, but if you want to keep it seamless, I would advise, trying to bend the screw as well as bending the elbow joint, so you can kind of get that, that seamless look, I guess, if you want, if that matters to you. Wrists are on a swivel, right, like usual, and then these hands have the hinging action. For the upper body, we have let me just stop the crush thrust for a second. You have a ab crunch on the screw, which is nice, so it means you can tighten or loosen it to your heart's content. Gets you a good range on the ab crunch. You have a waist swivel directly underneath it, which can go all the way around, which is great. So it does not, it's not bothered by the backpack at all, which is awesome. You have these rotating, the built-in hip skirt look for these hips, and these are going to get you up to 90. And then he does have a butt flap for whatever reason, and the butt flap, with it you can get back to You run into the backpack. I'm not going to untab the backpack. Let's just say that's your functional kickback range. These hip joints are pretty tight, you know, which is good because it's not like the lightest figure in the world. These hips can kick out to 90, so you can do the full splits. And then your knee joint, you have two knee joints. You have so you have a hinge right there, which gets you that far, and then you have another screw joint for your secondary knee. And if you use both of them together, I mean, you go past 90, that's for sure. But how much past 90 is you know, tail is going to get into the way. So for the most part, oh yeah, and I forgot, the ankles, you have a mushroom peg right here, and that gets you about this much ankle tilt. I want to say this much. Once you go past this, the shoe starts to, like, you know, tilt up, but you can kind of, like, if you want to get a really extreme, you can do that. I think if you pull this down, you can actually go farther, but then you can't pull it up, so that's something to keep in mind. So all around pretty good. I would say that he's pretty well articulated in this mode. I think the most of any Newage Dinobot so far, he's the only one with like dedicated butterfly joints, and not like Sludge, who has fake butterfly joints, if you mistransform it. So pretty impressive. I think he might be actually the first Newage figure with dedicated forwards butterflies. I don't think anyone else has those. Articulation's impressive. Accessories, you have this really nice translucent red sword, which is awesome. Unfortunately, when he goes to hold it, because of the shaping of the hilt, I think this was an oversight, he can't really hold it the way you normally would hold a sword. So it constantly has to be like an angle, which is really annoying to me personally. I really do wish that Newage would have, like, you know, either engineered like something at the hilt, so like the hilts can collapse or something, or in general, if you want him to actually hold the sword normally, oops, his hand just popped out, you would have to like have it basically clip in like this, so the hilt can go like over his hand, and it's gonna look kind of, yeah, it's gonna look pretty stupid. It's gonna look stupid. So pretty significant design oversight in my opinion. That being said, it is a cool sword. It does look cool. The translucent plastic looks really nice on the sword. He comes with the holding hand, and I'll just show you the hands close up, one of each. So you have the fist slash weapon holding hand. You come with a pair of each. He can transform with the weapon holding hands on, but he cannot transform with these larger articulated hinge palm hands that he has on his left hand right now. He cannot transform with those, unfortunately. He does have a blaster, and let me just get this out of here. So he does have a blaster, and it is this disgusting, sickly gray plastic. I don't know why it's like this. The original toy had a chrome blaster, so I feel like they could at least like painted this silver or something. It's also not a really great fit in his hand, and I don't care enough about it to push it all the way in. So that looks pretty awful. It does look pretty awful on a completely, like the shade of green on this toy, by the way, I didn't talk about it, but the shade of green on this toy is truly gorgeous. So it is really like disgusting to put something this ugly next to it. I assume the sword will be the main accessory for most people, but I have the thing I used in my pictures, again, sorry to be misleading, I just liked how it looked. I have this random blaster I got off a guy. I think he said it was from a Newage Grimlock KO. I just bought like a random Doctor Who figure off him, and he had these blasters listed on his thread, so I picked him up. Didn't really pay much for it. I think it was free. But it comes with one of those Grimlock KOs. I think the MK Grimlock KO. And the fact that it looks so much better despite being made of like this like really like patchy slash glossy, oily, inconsistent KO plastic that kind of looks like Magic Square black plastic, or their black nylon, is kind of sad. I mean, I like the gun as it is. this is not accurate in any shape, way, or form. So you really could have just made it black plastic. It would have looked infinitely better. But that's just a minor nitpick, you know. For the most part, this guy does look pretty good. I'm going to use my fake blaster with him because I want to. For some comparisons, you know, let's bring in some other Newage Dinobots. Here's Shatterglass Sludge, my favorite, my beautiful purple boy. And Shatterglass Swoop. And yes, that is Sludge's sword. And then finally, I think the comparison that I should have been making sooner. Let me get these guys out of here, actually. SG Slag. So, you know, I think I like this deco a lot more than the SG. The SG feels super boring, but I'll get more into that in its own review. But yeah, you know, it does look pretty good. Let me get these other guys out of the way. And then our classic size comparisons. So here he is next to a Chug. So he's basically deluxe class. The GOAT, Flak, the classic. Newage's depth charge, so he towers over depth charge, who's already pretty tall for a Newage figure. And then Core Bomb Burst. All right, Dino mode size comparisons. Let's get this out of the way real quick. So here he is next to a Core in alternate mode. Here he is in alternate mode next to a Deluxe. Newage depth charge. Just get these out of the way. And then Flak. Okay. I also transformed Newage Sludge, so you can kind of get a look at those two guys next to each other. And Newage Swoop. Okay, that's not gonna work. Swoop. And you're welcome. I never transformed this many figures for one review. Newage's Shatterglass Sludge. So let me, or Slag, sorry. So looking at these two, I think this is also going to just tie into the general comparisons of the Dino mode, or just looking at Dino mode. So here's Swoop for size. You can see Swoop's pretty small, just has a large wingspan. But these are the two I mainly wanted to show next to each other, just in terms of the molds, not in terms of the deco. I think one of the things that's really impressive about Slag is that the entire figure is like round. You know, like there are very few hard edges on this toy except for the bases of the feet. He is almost entirely round, and it's shockingly impressive. I don't think I've ever seen anything do that. Even Sludge, who I thought was super impressive, still has a flat base, and he's all clean underneath. Like he's got a very smooth upper body, but his bottom underside is flat. This figure just innovates to a new degree, I think, to get that smooth underside that I've never really seen on a G1 Dinobot. The use of chrome is nice, the use of tampos is nice. It's a nice contrast to the SG version, which is also a really good use of paint and tampos and metallics. And I love those translucent details on both the head for this and the biceps for that. Now I'm going to compare him to the Shatterglass one, which isn't mine. It's on loan to me from Quisis. One thing I wanted to compare is that you can see on the head, unfortunately, this guy, I'm gonna have to bring it close to the camera. There's this little raised indent here. You cannot push the forehead piece any further down, which means that these horns, which should be flush, this part is not flush. It just doesn't. I think it's because this is painted and the tolerance is too tight. And I've noticed this in a lot of pictures of people's copies. So I think it's like an endemic issue to all the versions of the Small that have a painted head. On this guy, since the head is unpainted translucent plastic, it works without an issue. And so there's no gap in the frills, as you can see here, and there's no dent there. Yeah, I don't really find the SG deco that appealing. It feels kind of boring. It has some nice teal and silver, but for the most part, it's pretty lame. Sorry, it's nice. It's just, I like this a lot more. Now let's get in close on this guy. So you have the only incidences of crow on this figure, like I said, are on the frill and like these parts right here. Again, the gold paint, tampos, you get more tampos here that look gorgeous. You know, tampos here, tampo here. The gold paint for the jaw, which is a bit misaligned, I think. There we go. You can also, has a blast effect port. I no longer have a blast effect because I sold Shattered Glass Grimlock. But yeah, I mean, looks great. Articulation, this guy's articulated out the wazoo for a dinosaur, so the jaw can open to a nice degree. You know, it could close all the way. I don't want to close it all the way though. If you wiggle this and then extend it, it's on slider, he can look side to side, which is insane. It's awesome. I mean, I don't really know many Slag figures that can look side to side. They all kind of forgo that. And then if you use a frill, you can tilt the frill to here, which allows you to get a crazy range up. Which may not look good from the underneath, obviously, but it looks fantastic like this. You know, even if the frills are a bit compromised with a little gap, it's still pretty awesome how articulated this Dino mode is. All the articulation from the arms except the wrist swivel is retained, so you can, you know, tilt this arm inwards and go like that. Right? You have the universal here, you have a double jointed elbow here, so you can really, like, there's a lot you can do with those arms. Legs, they're on a hinge here, so they can hinge out to the side almost to 90. They rotate on this screw. They don't really go much further forward. You kind of have to like clear this part, so you have to get them out to go there. There's a hinge here, and then there's a hinge for the toe, but there's no ankle tilt on either foot. Sludge had ankle tilt on his back legs. You can also go like that. But yeah, for a Dinobot, for a G1 Dinobot, the articulation is definitely there. And then finally for the tail, you have this 3-segment tail, which I think works pretty well. So yeah, the articulation is, you know, definitely there, which is awesome. I would be impressed enough by the shaping, but the fact that this mode really felt like the priority, I guess, is awesome because it works really well. It's a really nice dinosaur mode. I think something that can elevate this set beyond just being a Legends G1 dinosaur. So yeah, no weapon storage, but whatever. You can only transform with the closed hands. Okay, final thoughts. I think this might be the best mold that Newage has put out this year. There's not exactly a ton of competition. I guess the only candidates are like Huffer and Blaster. But yeah, this probably wins. I think it's my Legends figure of the year. It's probably my #1 figure that came out this year, but that's really disingenuous because I did a lot of back collecting. Even my MPs I got this year are all just repaints and retools of stuff from previous years, so it's not really a fair win for this guy, if I do say so myself. There's not a lot of heavy hitters for 2024 for me personally. But you know, the paint is there, the deco is there, the green is gorgeous, the articulation is there, the shaping of the alternate mode is just delightful. The fact that it turns into like a round potato is awesome. The tampos are fantastic. The accessories blow chunks. They're pretty terrible. I think it's inexcusable that like a $75 toy has such poor finish, or not finish, but like there's like zero thought put into those accessories. The polish on those is like bottom tier. I don't understand whose idea it was to give every single version. I will show this in the Shattered Glass Slag review, but the ugly gray, sickly green, sickly gray blaster is like on every version of this toy. It's not just on this version. It's on the SG, it's on the EX. I don't understand why they're all printed. Did they all make them in the same batch? It just seems like a weird decision to like save costs on like a thing that shouldn't be saving costs. The sword issue is stupid. It could have been easily avoidable by just like going the extra mile, which is what I usually expect from Newage. So it does feel like that was a bit phoned in. I'm not gonna like rag on a figure because like the sword and the gun are ass, but they are ass. I feel like that needs to be said. It's not perfect, obviously, but for the most part, the actual mold itself is a banger. I will admit, like the all black face is like, you know, it's a bit hard to see. I don't understand why the Shattered Glass version did that too. I know because they used a garbage reference for it. But you know, for the most part, this does all the things it needs to do well, and it does a lot of things that have never been done before, which I'm a pretty big fan of. I can definitely recommend it. I'm gonna put a link to where I got mine for Shozy's store down in the description. I think if you collect Legends, probably get a copy of this mold. It's the best Newage Dinobot. It's not like by a mile it beats out Sludge, but Sludge and this are like a mile above the rest of them, in my opinion. So I would pick this up if you like Legends and you like Dinobots. If it's expensive, wait for it to go on sale. I think you can definitely do that. I don't think the price is awful, but it is kind of high. $75 is pretty high for Legends Dinobot. If you don't like, even if you don't like tuning, you can pick up a repaint. I think it's worth it, even if you have no other Newage Dinobots. If you only get one, get this one. I think this one's the best one. I already said that. If you're not really into G1, I don't know if I should recommend this. I mean, the toy and the G2 versions are really cool, but if they're not for you, they're not for you, I guess. I just think as a toy, it's pretty fun. I think the transformation is more fun than Sludge, and it still manages to be even more impressive. So I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. And I think that's a consensus opinion for a reason. You know, it really does do a lot of things well, and I do wish that the upcoming Snarl was more of the same. I will be taking a look at the Shattered Glass version next week because I need to get that back to the original owner. Sorry again. But yeah, I mean, again, the mold was good enough that it inspired me to go out and buy this for myself. So it's definitely a toy I can personally recommend because I enjoyed it enough to like buy a copy to keep. Even if I get good toys to borrow, I usually don't get them to keep for myself because once I've experienced a toy, I'm like, okay, I'm done with it. But this guy was good enough that I'm like, I need a copy. I need to own a copy. So again, sorry, I rambled a bit too long. Thank you guys again for tuning in. And I'll try to have another review out on the Shattered Glass version next week. Soulless Convoy, peace out.